Every entrepreneur says they want legacy, until legacy requires discipline. Esau gave up his inheritance for a moment of relief. How many times have we done the same thing? Selling out our future for something that feels good right now. I was reading the story of Esau and Jacob when Esau gave up his birthright for a bowl of stew. At first, it sounds wild, but when you really think about it, a lot of us are doing that same thing. We're trading our calling for comfort, our long-term inheritance for a short-term win. We're so hungry for progress that we end up selling the very promises that God placed over our lives and calling it strategy. If you're building a business, this story hits deep because the higher you go, the more costly your decisions become. You can't afford to move from emotion or ego. You can't afford to trade alignment for applause. Every offer, every partnership, every pivot is a test. Will you protect your birthright, your integrity, your anointing, your assignment, or sell it for the illusion of quick results? Let's be real. At this level, distraction looks like opportunity. Disobedience looks like innovation, but discernment will tell you the difference. You already have the skill. You already have the access, but if you keep forfeiting your inheritance for temporary satisfaction, you'll build success that your spirit cannot sustain. So before you say yes to that next thing, ask yourself, am I protecting my birthright or trading it for a bowl of stew?
My name is Nicole. I am a brand strategist and storyteller where I'm helping you take your ideas from the secret place to the marketplace. And welcome to my channel. If you are new here, go ahead and hit that like, comment, and subscribe button. Do all the things so that you guys can continue to see more videos like this. I want to continue to help you grow on this journey, not just with God, but as entrepreneurs and as creatives, really looking to step into the call and bring God's vision to life. Now let's get into today's episode. So I was reading the story of Esau and Jacob and how basically Esau gave up his birthright for a bowl of stew. And while I was reading it, in the middle of it, it just seems like, okay, it's not that deep, but a lot of us are actually living our lives like that, and we don't even realize how much we are giving up our inheritance, our birthright, the call over our life for food or for our vice or whatever our immediate desire is in that moment, and we're not understanding the weight of what that choice is doing. So we're in Genesis 25:27, and this is basically walking us through the whole moment where Esau gave up his birthright to Jacob for a bowl of stew. Verse 27, the boys grew up and Esau became a skillful hunter, a man of the open country, while Jacob was content to stay at home among the tents. Isaac, who had taste for wild game, loved Esau, but Rebekah loved Jacob. Once, when Jacob was cooking some stew, Esau came in from an open country famished. He said to Jacob, quick, let me have some of that red stew. I am famished. That is why he called him Edom. And Jacob replied, first, sell me your birthright. Look, I'm about to die, Esau said. What good is the birthright to me? But Jacob said, swear to me first. So he swore an oath to him, selling him birthright to Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau some bread and some lentil stew, and he ate and he drank and then got up and left. So Esau despised his birthright. And when you're first reading this, it is just so powerful because it's literally giving you the context that Esau had the power, he had the will to go outside and hunt for the food that he needed to go eat. And it's not like he didn't have what he needed to fulfill the call over his life. He had all the resources. It's literally saying the boy grew up and Esau became a skillful hunter, a man open to country. He was open to all the accessibilities to what he needed to provide for himself, whereas Jacob was more sheltered and he was inside. So it's like, in what ways are we forfeiting our calling, even though we have all the things in our hand right now and we're handing it off to somebody else that doesn't even meet half of the standards of what the call is supposed to be over your life? It is just like insane. It even says how Jacob ate and drank and then got up. like nothing happened. He wasn't even impacted by the choices that he made. And like, as we're doing certain things and as we're really trying to step into this call over our life, in what ways are we actually acting so nonchalant to the choices that we're making right now? We're acting so unrepentive to the choices that we're making right now that we're not even seeing the weight of the decision that you just made. You just gave up your inheritance. You just gave up your birthright by making this choice and this decision. And we're being nonchalant about it. And we're putting ourselves in these routines and these cycles to act like none of it even matters. Like, okay, let me just pray about it tonight. Let me just pray about it tomorrow. And then you're going to continue to perpetuate the cycle of you giving up your birthright by falling into this vice, by meeting your flesh, by eating that bowl of stew and not going out and getting it for yourself. If that's what it's going to take, if that's what it means, if somebody's going to try to coerce you to give up your inheritance just so that you can fulfill your flesh. Are you that willing? Are you that willing to meet your fleshly need? That you're willing to give it up to anybody, even though you have the skills, even though you have the weight in your hands? Even Esau being a skillful hunter, are you utilizing your skill to the most appropriate standard, to the most appropriate way? Or are you allowing it to just be an idea that's just resting in the back of your mind and you're waiting to put it to use? You're waiting to put it to use. And we have to consider how we operate when pressure hits. When we feel like our body is so weak, when we feel like we're so famished, when we feel like we're so tired, when we feel like we're so fed up, how are we allowing the fan to hit the wall? How are we allowing that pressure and that desperation to not allow us to fully fulfill the call over our life? How do we start leaning on other people in a way where they can manipulate us, where they might be able to use us to control us so they can get something off of us, instead of us standing our ground and holding our ground so that we can actually confidently fulfill the call? Are we becoming so desperate that we actually forget our authority and our ability to stand our ground with our strength and our discipline, knowing that we have God on our side to execute this thing? So many of us have these gifts that we don't fully execute, that we don't fully step into, because as soon as it's time for us to be tired, we are willing to give it all up. We're willing to give it all up for food. We're willing to give it all up for sex. We're willing to give it all up for liquor. We're willing to give it all up to just gossip and talk about people. We're willing to give it all up just so we don't honor our bodies. It's like we're just so quick to give it up as soon as the pressure hits. I'm gonna just bed rot for 3 days at a time because I'm feeling the pressure, I'm feeling the fatigue. Instead of calling on God, instead of calling on the Holy Spirit to transform your mind and renew your mind and remind yourself about the authority that you do have in that moment. Why are we not operating like that? You keep on looking at what everybody else got going on, that you're not gonna be able to fully step into your call. If you keep looking at somebody else's stoop, somebody else's platform, what everybody else got going on, you're not going to be able to fully embrace the journey and the path of what it's going to take for you to step into your own thing. You think that if you get somebody else to do the work for you, that it's going to be a shortcut, when you're really undermining yourself and your gift in the process by trying to follow what everybody else is doing, by not trying to fully operate in your gift and your call. You're even getting to the point where you're despising your gift, you're despising your skills, you're despising the work that you have to put in to actually do the thing, because it's going to force you to trust God. It's going to force you to not have strength on your own. It's going to force you to try to not operate and manipulate other people to try to get the things that you feel like your flesh needs and not what your spirit needs. Over time, it's not going to be sustainable. And in the end, it's not just about giving up your birthright, but it's about the lack of ability to cultivate this skill so that it's impossible for somebody to take the birthright, because you put in the work, you put in the time, you put in the effort for you to actually get the resolve of you holding this mantle over your life, because you put in the work. And you have to think about how Jacob really just used his mind. He used his smarts. He used his mental to understand that he was unwilling to do the work. And even though he didn't even per se deserve it from time to time, because he was lying, he was stealing, he was doing all the things just to get this birthright, He was manipulating just to get this birthright. But because he knew that Esau didn't want to put in the work, he won by default. He knew because he was lagging and he was delayed, he won by default. And in which way are we doing that? Are we just giving things up because we're just operating from a state of delay? We're positioning ourselves to be delayed. We have to think about when his father went to go bless Esau. He was trying to go bless him. He told him to go out, go kill the goats, go make me this meal, go make me this stew, and I'm gonna bless you right after. I'm about to die. And as soon as he went out to go do that, Rebecca and Jacob sat there and they manipulated the whole situation just so that they can win this birthright, win this blessing over their life. And you have to think about how far people are willing to go. Rebecca lied, Jacob lied. They were willing to lie about the goat skins over his hands, even though he wanted. How many times did his father ask him, was like, is this Esau? Is this really Esau? And he was like, yeah. He was so willing to lie to make sure that this thing went through. But if Esau only cultivated his gift in a way where he can actually execute and be on top, and even just be mindful on how his family was moving over the call over his life, and how he could have approached it from a period of steadfastness, that he would actually still been able to maintain the inheritance, still been able to maintain the blessing over his life. We're not even considering that. This whole conversation really comes down to value. What do you value? Jacob valued the inheritance. He valued the birthright, so much so that he was willing to lie. He was willing to manipulate and just garner distrust so that he can get this thing that he wanted. And Esau was so careless with it. He was so careless with it. And we have to think about, what things are we putting in front of us that we value so much more than this call over our life? And are we being honest with ourselves with how much we're valuing that thing? Because it's going to get to a point where the lying and the manipulation and all these other things are only going to hold Jacob over for so long, right? But in the end, Esau still didn't put in the work. He still didn't really step into the call before, when it's time for his father to really truly bless him. So are we even thoroughly putting in the work that is required for us to even be deserving of the blessing, to be deserving of the call? Are you really operating in the fruit? So that when you receive, it actually makes sense. Your flesh might be content now, but your spirit is going to be wrestling and wrestling and wrestling and continuing to fight every time you give it up. Every time you meet that fleshy desire, every time you just lock into that vice, your flesh might be satisfied, but your spirit is going to be wrestling and fighting for your life. It's going to be in a constant state of battle. And it's like, how willing are you to just give it all up because you don't want to do the work that's required, and have the discipline and have the discernment and have the conversations and start saying, no, actually, I'm not going to do that because this is my inheritance. This is my call. And you start fully operating the authority that you have with this gifting, with this call. And even if you don't have all the skills and if you don't have all the knowledge yet, you are willing to put in the work. Because you could be a skillful hunter, but you're so hung up on the fact that you're not good at stewarding inside the home to actually cook the meal, and you don't want to take the active steps to actually learn how to cook the meal. So you rather fall and give up your whole birthright for a cooked meal instead of learning how to do it yourself. It's like, what ways are we just giving it all up because we don't want to learn? We don't want to learn. We don't want to take the time to learn. And it's just so crazy because if you think about Esau and Jacob, they are brothers. They were brothers in the womb. There's a level of connection that they have, right? That's unsaid. If he told him no and started asking him questions, think about how that could have went differently for him. You know what? Actually, I don't want to give up my birthright. I'll be willing to wait a couple days. Show me how you made that. I'll make it myself. Oh, you don't want to show me? I'll figure it out. You know? Like, we are just so willing to give it up instead of asking the questions that are required so that we don't have to just let it all go. The problem is that you keep on crashing out every time you're tired, every time you're hungry, every time that you feel a little stimulated, you want to crash out. That is your problem. That is your problem. Instead of calling on God and trusting His timing to allow you to get there, instead of calling on Him and allowing Him to renew your mind, you'd rather crash out. You'd rather crash out. You don't want to wake up and do the hard work. You don't want to wake up and learn. You don't want to find something new. You don't want to protect over your call. You'd rather crash out. When you think about Esau, just saying, hurry up, like I'm famished, give it to me now. Like nobody is that hungry. Jesus literally went 40 days with no food. It's like nobody is that hungry that you won't be able to make it through the day. And in those moments when it's time for us to make a choice, we think that the world is going to end if we don't stand on business with that choice. That's not how this works. It's time for us to actually weigh the cost. There's a cost when you decide not to move in alignment with God's will over your life. There is a cost. And you are right now not willing to pay the price. You're not willing to pay the price. You're not willing to put in the work to pay the price.
If this message hit home for you, don't just sit with it. That nudge you're feeling, that's your cue for clarity. Go ahead to the link in my description and book a clarity call with me. It's time to stop moving off of confusion and start creating from conviction. Subscribe for more strategy and stories because this next season of your life deserves direction and not distraction.